It's Thursday, January 12th, 2022. I'm watching this story develop over the last few days. I'm inside of this in New York. It's about some local congressman that they just voted. I don't know who voted in. Again, unbeknownst to me, but this is the face that they put up in the media circus. And he goes by the name George Santos, and he's got a local Vicky Palladino, who, whatever. And now he lied about this resume. And now he's in Congress and he's being swarmed by the media, calling for his resignation. Nassau County GOP, whomever they are, they are up there at the podium. They're like, if this was a joke, it's not funny, and whatever. So now, my whole thing is, in my local area, same place I've heard the name Vicky Palladino, not that we've met, there is a local. I put his name in my phone. I texted out when I was doing muster calls of like what's following me around Bayside, like where's my ground support. And they were sending in people that I can't vet. I don't have access to background checks. I'm sitting in Starbucks and it's like decoy in the field. Like, who's watching to make sure that they're like, who's swarming? I mean, I'm hive. I'm an apiary. And I don't have access to, like, what's running background checks of what's existing in this area. So, I met with somebody who was wearing sunglasses and came decently dressed. And I was asking if he knew of, I said I was looking for employment. I asked if he knew of anybody. He said that he worked for some marketing firm. Turns out it was someone from South Korea. I did not know South Korea was so involved in technology. I had no idea. We went to the place over here that's called Chicken Lovers. It's right next door to Jane's. So at Jane's, which now is no longer there, J.C. 28 and I had like a little sister, big brother, whatever. And then T.L. took me to this Chicken Lovers, which I wouldn't get in the car with T.L. I walked. J.C. 28, I allowed him to drive because at some point I felt more safe than whatever. So there's that. Just so the Bill Gannon in the neighborhood knows that whatever. But I gave this TL my actual resume of places that I've been while whatever, trying to feed the kids and myself and even figure out where to go and what to do while they've been withholding the arrival of Heartthrob. It's the only way I'm going to explain it. Because, like, what they offered was pathetic. Pitiful. And they being whatever's in this area that caused the problem to begin with, in case my American dad needs answers and his American daughter has already been hurt in the field, while some form of whatever's going on. So there's that. So now I'm looking at how they put this resume up there. And how there's some process that the professionals are able to verify, or they call it vet, these professional Congress people. I'm looking to see what itemized, like what are they looking for in a congressperson. Again, they had up there this like Baruch College. They had some GPA and all that. I mean, again, at Nassau Community College, I had a 4.0. At CW Post LIU, I had a 4.0. I don't put it on my resume, but I did. And again, that's matriculated records, easy to obtain. And so there's that. And then there's, I'm watching this story, and as it unfolds, and I'm listening with a keen ear, knowing whatever was operating in this area while I was legitimately looking for community, some form of participation, some form of employment. And while people were arriving, people were hanging out, people were doing whatever people do in this, my situation never got any better. So I'm going to pause this for a second. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to put up the story that they have on Eyewitness News at 7. So the resume up here has this feel of similarity, again, to stuff that just recently happened, somewhere between 2020 and 2023.
This joke's gotta go. I will not. This is the resume he submitted to Nassau County Republicans, obtained by ABC News. Santos claimed he worked for Goldman Sachs. He didn't. He claimed he worked for Citigroup. He did not.
Difference is, I actually worked for the places on the resume that I handed over. Problem is, because I'm an apiary, because my American dad is so spiritually strong and powerful and really has very little patience and has really dry eyes and really loves his daughter like she's the only one that there ever was and will ever be again. And he fights with that kind of vim and vigor. It might have been frightening to TL when he arrived. And I gave this resume over, proving that I was forced into the public, whatever, pool of applicants. Meanwhile, I'm a clockmaker and a star maker. And the area did not cooperate and provide the correct male component that was needed since my birth.
He claimed he got a bachelor's from Baruch College and a master's from NYU.
So again, I get that they run operations for all sorts of things, and then they data collect, and on the people, whatever, they try to spin it each week, whatever way. There's a very real, I needed help and was not receiving any kind of stipend, commission, employment, whatever, as was needed, but wouldn't have been needed had they provided the correct suitor or whatever word they use, and they've withheld it.
He never graduated from any college. He told voters he was Jewish. He isn't. On Tuesday, New York Democrats Richie Torres and Dan Goldman hand-delivered this ethics complaint to Santos. He's also under federal investigation and facing new allegations he illegally used campaign.
See, now, it's really interesting when the American dads, one American daughter who, there's this strong bond between the two of us, even though I haven't met him and I don't know where he works out of. But I just know he exists. Like, people know that Jesus exists, or people know that God exists. It's along those lines. And so with that being said, like, I know my American dad exists somewhere in the world. And because I'm in this North America, that makes me his American daughter. And because our bond is just so strong, when this game or whatever took place with withholding the correct person that I needed, a whole lot of things went on. And now, because so much time has gone on, so much story has gone on, people actually are living in the wrong stories and movies and ways of telling the original truth and what needed to be done. It now poses like a really big or theoretical problem, not between me and Dad, but between Dad's relationship with everything else in between the correct heartthrob that wanted me then, that I wanted then, and where we are today. Potentially.
Paying money to pay his personal expenses, like rent. And yet, newly elected Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy finds no fault in Santos and plans to appoint him to committees.
Do you think any action against him at this point?
Is there a charge against him? You know, in America today, you're innocent until proven guilty.
McCarthy insists all this will be up to voters to decide in the next midterm.
One thing I think...
So I don't know anything about this George Santos kid. I don't know whose favorite he is. I don't know anything about it. But I have a similar what happened between 2020 and 2023 while I'm just sitting in Starbucks trying to look like legitimately for some form of support. And some stuff happened. And now I'm seeing some similarities. So as long as we're here.
It's the voters who made that decision. He has to answer the voters.
Yeah, the fact is, voters made their decision based on a set of lies. And this morning, Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries of Brooklyn said it should not be left for voters to fix this in 2 years. He said Republican leadership, who apparently failed to properly vet their candidate, should fix this right now. In the newsroom, I'm Derek Waller, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
I mean, again, somewhere in the world, is there somebody avoiding prosecution for what they did or what they perceived to think they pulled off while building some whatever somewhere else? But, like, the facts still remain. It wasn't right then, and it sure as hell isn't right now. In some, like, helter-skelter kind of a way. Here's the beginning of that article.
New at noon, pressure mounting on Republican Congressman George Santos. Leaving his office this morning, Santos dodged questions about his reaction to his Republican colleagues calling for his resignation. But he did tell reporters, quote, "If 142,000 people ask for me to resign, I will resign," meaning the people who voted for him. Eyewitness News reporter Derek Waller is in the newsroom now with more. Derek?
Charlene, as you mentioned, we just got that clarification on that odd comment made to reporters as he ducked into an elevator this morning. Santos is under federal investigation. His colleagues want nothing to do with him. But Speaker McCarthy has his back, and so the circus continues.
Congressman, what's your reaction to members of your own party calling for your resignation? Are you planning to resign? The voters asked for you to resign. Will you resign if your voters...
142 people asked for me to resign. I'll resign.
And he has something, they said the other day, to do with Brazil. Now, again, whatever.
Santos later clarified to ABC News he was referring to the 142,000 people who voted for him. But the number of resignation requests is certainly growing. The court
gets confusing between squares, diamonds, triangles, two circles, and then a cross.
This includes 4 Republican congressmen from New York and leaders of the Republican Party in Albany and Nassau County.
I'm calling for his immediate resignation.
Resign.
We must call for the resignation of Congressman George Santos.
Resign.
Steps down.
Step aside.
He should resign.
It's time to go. This joke's gotta go.
Congressman Santos, will you resign?
I will not.
And then if you put or take into account, like if I go over the social media of special script that I'm not going into, and what it might look like to a lay person that does not know the level of air pollution and smog and chemicals that affect, and then the food and the water and the whatever. I mean, they may in some thought about it, but they don't actually live here and have to ingest these products. But I have. And the results are posted. They seem like whatever. And it's whatever, whatever, whatever. But interestingly enough, they did put up something that says astronaut and cosmonaut, because apparently there's, in the nautical world, there's two separate classifications of something that exists at some level of ISS that I had never even been introduced to or heard of. All right, here's where the humans are acknowledged. Now, again, I don't really know, like, I've seen the movie Silence of the Lambs. If I'm the character of Clarice, and whatever animal works on whatever these news programs put up is a version of Anthony Hopkins in the movie Silence of the Lambs, like the mastermind Anthony Hopkins, and Clarice has to go in and interview him, or like whatever, and whatever. And like, that's kind of how I try to approach this, is like, I didn't say Anthony Hopkins was a bad guy, because if that's like the American Dad's office trying to get their papers in order because Dad's got a big job ahead of him, I'm just still trying to show up every day for American Dad.
Sometimes work trips get extended, right? And that is the case for a NASA astronaut and 2 Russian cosmonauts in space. They are going to spend a few extra months on the International Space Station. They were supposed to return to Earth in...
Now, it says astronaut and 2 cosmonauts. And of course, I know that the mirror reflection is whatever and whatever, but it's how the camera works since I have it faced towards me at the moment. And then there's Honorable Governor Kathy Hochul, speaking about the nurses' strike today. And she refers to the entire, I mean, like, in someone's portfolio, it looks like public displays of dissidence. But again, I don't know whose dad is taking care of that level of whatever. And then there's my American Dad, and I don't want him to encounter any problems. But she says, she calls them angels, but they are not. What's been described as an angel here in Rome, in other places, so I've heard it associated with, always has a very distinct look, like one of Caesar's children. Some fresco in Europe that was painted by perhaps the Venetians. I'm not sure. But it's definitely not what is posing in front of the hospitals after they won some union contract negotiations. I just want to be clear, because I don't want to mislead or misgather in whatever. So now here's the story on this New York City nurses' strike, which has ended. It has a red cross on it. It also has 2 snakes and then 2 wings, just saying. And the representative, the official in capacity, would be Governor Kathy Hochul.
Nurses at Montefiore and Mount Sinai are back on the job. The nurses union and hospital management reached tentative agreements early this morning.
Now, my representative that I arrived to New York to, he always told the story that when his mama had him in the field, she would put him down. And there was this one time where 2 snakes were trying to drink from the one bowl of milk, and he had 1 spoon.
More than 7,000 nurses staged a 3-day strike before both sides reached a deal. Eyewitness News reporter Janice Yu has details on the new contract and what's next.
The nurses say this really has been a years-long fight. They say they've sounded the alarm about the consequences of understaffing for some time now, but they say this historic contract finally begins to address their concerns.
I'm happy.
The 3-day-long strike is over, and on Thursday morning, nurses from Mount Sinai, Maine and Montefiore, Bronx returned to their patients.
Oh, God. This is such a great moment. So these individuals are angels here on earth, can get back to saving lives and helping the most vulnerable people in our society.
More than 7,000 nurses walked off their jobs at the 2 hospitals on Monday morning.
Say 7,000 nurses? Because again, clean up in aisle 7 at the supermarket. I see the Red Cross was there. I see some symbols, sanitation, some medical. They have like strike on POV, ERT, poverty instead of the poor. Right, okay, but POV is very really having a conversation with someone and does not know how to keep us all safe and herself safe. And
And for days, they stood on the picket line to take a stand.
It was never about money. It was always about patient safety.
At the center of negotiations was understaffing. Nurses say there are at least 500 open positions at Mount Sinai alone, and ultimately they say it could have dangerous outcomes for the patients.
One of the most difficult areas is the emergency department, where, one nurse can have, 18, 20 patients.
Now with the staffing ratios included in the contracts, the hospitals could face fines if they don't adhere to them. Officials say it's the first time staffing ratio enforcement has been included in a contract for nurses. Mount Sinai's president says the last few days have been trying, tough on staff at the hospital, but at the end of the day, he says they all want the same thing.
And they do use this FAIR contract at the union. Angels typically, by the way, are fair-skinned. Just gonna say. It's what historically has been painted and then spoken about. Just so HEIR and AIR and then AERO. Know where the square, the diamond, the triangle, and the circle is at the cross for this particular moment of, I don't know what the children are up to. Oh, I saw an update for the dad that knows and asked me in person about the garage. I think that was the day that the personal representative from the art collector and something admirable that knew about the bricks on the outside of wherever I had a meeting with, whatever. He was asking, that one dad on the inside of the building was asking to explain to him what a garage meant to me for where I was at whatever, before I, in between when I was in the school building. So I had that conversation and explained exactly what it was like for, what it, in my view, what it meant. I see they mentioned that President Joe Biden found a second set of documents in his garage in Delaware. So now there's the closet, and now there's this today at 101 Constitution. They found more documents.
Details, Elizabeth.
Well, Joe, there are a lot of questions about how and why now 2 sets of classified documents from President Biden's time in the Obama administration were not sent to the National Archives to be properly stored. President Biden is under intensifying political pressure amid revelations his aides discovered a second batch of classified documents.
So more classified files found in president's garage in Delaware. Again, whatever it means.
Documents, this time in his home from his time as vice president. Biden's lawyers decided to search for more files after finding an initial set of 10 vice presidential briefing papers in November at Biden's former private office. Some of them were marked top secret.
People know I take classified documents and classified material seriously. I also said we're cooperating fully and completely with the Justice Department's review.
The White House is declining to answer specific questions about the files, saying Biden's attorneys immediately contacted the Justice Department upon locating both sets of documents.
We're going to see all this unfold. I'm confident.
Republicans are accusing Biden of hypocrisy.
He goes on 60 Minutes, criticizes president, even knowing what he has done.
The GOP-led House Oversight Committee launching an investigation into the documents and calling for the appointment of a special counsel.
We have now 2 different locations where Joe Biden had classified documents, but nothing's happened. He wasn't raided.
But former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago home was searched by the FBI after a long legal battle, his team refusing to cooperate with a subpoena. Prosecutors allege Trump took more than 300 classified documents with him to the estate and may have obstructed the investigation.
Joe, the White House has yet to answer some critical questions, like why the president's lawyers were searching that former office in the first place and why they didn't publicly disclose the discovery of these documents back in November anytime sooner. Reporting live in Washington, Elizabeth Schulze, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Elizabeth, thank you, and stay with Eyewitness News indeed.
The man in the gray trousers with his very Sergeant Gannon or Friday or whatever that was about, who showed up in 2000. I mean, again, I don't know what takes so long. There was already a problem with the 1976. It should not have been stretched into the year 2023, especially after, I mean, somebody sleeping at the foot of your bed to protect you is the level of priority based on religious efforts and severity and priority. And yet, cuts had been made into all sorts of whatever on the human body. And things had been done, and yet I'm still just cast aside, like as if my apiary, existence meant nothing to humans. That's, the American dad needs to know these things. And why and what is time dilation over the last 23 years? Where has support been for my person before it happened and certainly after? It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.